ask their permission. That was a rule he had whenever he played. Always be polite. She shrugged, rolled her soft brown eyes, shifted her weight from one booted foot to the other. I guess we've gone this far, haven't we? $1,000, Sullivan said. This was where you usually won or lost the game. Right now. The Madonna's smile disappeared, but she didn't walk away. Sullivan's heart started to pound. He had her going, leaning his way. Now he just had to close the sale. Nothing funny, I promise, Sullivan said quickly, pouring on the charm without being too obvious about it. The Madonna frowned. You promise, huh? 1 hour, Sullivan said. The trick here was how you said it. It had to sound like, no big deal. Nothing threatening, nothing out of the ordinary. Just an hour. Just $1,000. Why not? What's the harm? Red light, she said, and walked away from him in a huff, never even looked back. He could tell she was pissed, too. Sullivan was mad, his heart still beating hard. Something else was rock hard as well. He wanted to grab the Madonna and strangle her in the middle of the mall, really mess her up. But he loved this little game he'd invented. Red light, green light. Half an hour later, he was trying his luck outside the Victoria's Secret at the nearby Tyson's Corner Mall. He got to 1 hour with a dreamy blonde in a Jersey Girl t-shirt and short shorts. No luck, though. And he was really getting hot and bothered now. He needed a win, needed to get laid, needed an adrenaline hit. The next girl he approached had beautiful, shimmering red hair, great body, long legs, and small, lively tits that moved around in rhythm when she talked. At the 1 hour prompt, she folded her slender arms over her chest. Talk about body language. Wow! But Red didn't walk away from him. Conflicted? Sure. He loved that in a woman. You're in control the whole time. You choose the hotel or your place, whatever you want, whatever seems right. It's all up to you. She looked at him for a moment, silent, and he knew that she was sizing him up. They stared right into your eyes at this point. He could tell that this one trusted her instincts. It's all up to you. Plus, she either wanted or needed the $1,000. And, of course, he was cute. Finally, Red spoke in a quiet voice, because nobody else was supposed to hear this, right? You have the cash on you? He showed her a roll of hundreds. They all hundreds? She asked. He showed her that they were hundreds. You mind if I ask you your name? He said. Sherry. That your real name? Whatever, Jeff. Let's go. The clock is running. Your hour's already begun. And off they went. After his hour with Sherry was over, closer to an hour and a half, actually, Michael Sullivan didn't have to give her any money. Not $1,000, not a nickel. All he had to do was show Sherry his picture collection and a scalpel he had brought along. Red light, green light, hell of a game.
Chapter 33. 2 days after she walked out on us, Nana was back at the house, thank God, and the heavenly choir, who had to be watching over us. The whole family, but especially me, had learned a lesson about how much we loved Nana and needed her. How many small, often unnoticed and thankless things she did for us every day. How totally indispensable she was, and the sacrifices she made. Not that Nana ever really let us forget her contributions under ordinary circumstances. It was just that she was even better than she thought she was. When she waltzed in the kitchen door that morning, she caught Janny eating Cocoa Puffs and let her have it in her own inimitable style. "My name is Janelle Cross. I am a substance abuser," Nana said. Janny raised both arms over her head in surrender. Then she went and emptied the chocolate cereal right into the trash. She looked Nana in the eye, said, "If you're a vehicle traveling at the speed of light, what happens when you switch on the headlights?" Then she hugged Nana before she could try to answer the unanswerable. I went and hugged Nana too, and was smart enough to keep my mouth shut, but my powder dry. When I got home from work that night, my grandmother was waiting for me in the kitchen. Uh-oh, I thought. But the second she saw me, Nana put her arms out for a hug, which surprised me. "Come," she said. When I was in her arms, she continued, "I'm sorry, Alex. I had no right to run away and leave you all like that. I was in the wrong. I missed all of you as soon as I was in the cab with Abraham." "You had every right," I started to say. Nana cut me off. "Now don't argue with me, Alex. For once, quit while you're ahead." I did as I was told, and shut up. Chapter 34. Big stuff. Now here we go. On Friday morning of that week, at a few minutes past 9 o'clock, I found myself all alone in the alcove outside Director Ron Burns's office on the 9th floor of the Hoover Building, FBI headquarters. The director's assistant, Tony Woods, peeked his round, deceptively cherubic face out of Burns' outer office. "Hey, Alex, there you are. Why don't you come on in? Good job the other day on Kentucky Avenue. Under the circumstances especially. The director's been wanting to talk to you about it and some other things he has on his mind. I heard Ned Mahoney's going to make a full recovery." Terrific job. I almost got myself killed, I thought, as I followed Woods into the inner office. Ned Mahoney got shot in the neck. He could have died, too. The director was there waiting for me in his sanctum sanctorum. Ron Burns has a kind of funny way about him. He's a hard-charging guy, but he's learned to make meaningless small talk and smile a lot before he gets down to business. That's pretty much a requirement in Washington, especially if you have to deal with as many sneaky politicians as he does. Like many A-type business-minded men, though, Burns is pretty awful at small talk. But we chatted about local sports and the weather for a good 90 seconds before we got into the real reason for my visit. "So, what's on your mind these days?" Burns asked. "Tony said you wanted to see me, so I take it this isn't purely a social call." "I have a few things to go over with you, too. A new assignment for starters. A serial up in Maine and Vermont, of all places." I nodded and let Burns rattle on. But suddenly I was feeling tense and a little unsure of myself. Finally, I had to cut him off. "There's no good way to ease into this, Director, so I'll just say it. I'm here to tell you that I'm going to be leaving the Bureau. This is very difficult and it's embarrassing. I appreciate everything you've done for me, but I've made a decision for my family. It's final. I'm not going to change my mind." "Shit," Burns said, and he hit his desk hard with the palm of his hand. "Damn it all to hell, Alex. Why would you leave us now? It makes no sense to me. You're on a very fast track at the Bureau. You know that, right? Tell you what, I'm not going to let you do it." "Nothing you can do to stop me," I told him. "I'm sorry, but I'm sure I'm doing the right thing. I've thought this through 100 times in the last few days." Burns stared into my eyes, and he must have seen something resolute there, because he stood up behind his desk. Then he came around it with his hand outstretched. "You're making a terrible mistake and an atrociously bad career move. But I can tell there's no point in arguing with you. It's been a real pleasure, Alex, and an education," he said as we shook hands. We made some more uncomfortable chit-chat for the next couple of minutes. Then I got up to leave his office. As I reached the door, Burns called, "Alex, I hope I can still call on you from time to time. I can, can't I?" I laughed in spite of myself, because the remark was so typical of Burns's never-say-die attitude. "You can call on me eventually, but why don't you give it a few months, okay?" "Couple of days, anyway," said Burns, and at least he winked when he said it. We both laughed, and suddenly it sunk in. My brief, somewhat illustrious career with the FBI was over and done with. Also, I was unemployed. Chapter 35. I'm not a big fan of looking back on the stages of my life with anything like regret. And anyway, my time at the FBI had been mostly very good and probably even valuable in the long run. I'd learned things, accomplished a fair amount, like stopping a Russian mafia psycho called the Wolf. And I'd made some good friends. The head of hostage rescue, maybe even the director, which couldn't hurt and might even help me out someday. Still, I wasn't prepared for the incredible feeling of relief I experienced as I carried a cardboard box stuffed full of my possessions out of the FBI building that morning. It felt as if at least a couple of 100 pounds of dead weight had been lifted off my shoulders, a burden I hadn't even known was there. I didn't know for sure if I'd just made a good decision, but it sure felt like it. No more monsters, human or otherwise, I was thinking to myself. No more monsters ever. I headed toward home at a little before noon. Free at last. I had the car windows open and was listening to Bob Marley's No Woman, No Cry, the words blasting from the radio. I was singing along. I didn't have a plan for what I was going to do next, not even for the rest of the day, and it felt pretty terrific. Actually, I liked the idea of doing nothing for a while, and I was beginning to think I might be pretty good at it, too. There was something I needed to do right now, while I was in the mood. I drove out to the Mercedes dealership and found the salesperson, Laurie Berger. I took a test drive in the R350, and all that legroom was even more fun on the open highway than it had been in the showroom. I liked the vehicle's zip, and also the dual-dash zone climate control, which would keep everybody happy, even Nana Mama. But even more important, it was time for the family and me to move away from Maria's old car. It was time. I had money from my book in savings, and so I bought the R350 and felt wonderful about it. When I got home, I found a note from Nana on the kitchen table. It was meant for Janny and Damon, but I read it anyway. Go out and get some fresh air, you two. There's coq au vin in the crock pot. Delicious. Set the table for me, please, and get a start on your homework before dinner. Damon has choir tonight. Remember to support your breath, young man. Aunt Tia and I have taken Allie to the zoo, and we're loving it. Your Nana isn't here, but I'm watching you anyway. I couldn't help smiling. This woman had saved me a long time ago, and now she was saving my kids. I'd been hoping to hang out with Allie, but there would be plenty of time for that in the near future. So I fixed myself a leftover pork and coleslaw sandwich, and then for some strange reason I made popcorn for one. Why? Why not? I don't even like popcorn that much, but suddenly I was in the mood for some hot buttered junk food. Free to be me. Free to be stupid if I wanted to. I ate the freshly popped popcorn and played the piano for a couple of hours that afternoon. Duke Ellington, Jelly Roll Morton, Al Green. I read several chapters from a book called The Shadow of the Wind, and then I did the truly unthinkable. I took a nap in the middle of the day. Before I drifted off, I thought about Maria again. The best of times. Our honeymoon at Sandy Lane in Barbados. What a blast that had been. How much I still missed her and wished she was here right now to hear my news. For the rest of the afternoon, the phone never rang once. I didn't have a pager anymore, and in the words of Nana Mama, I was loving it. Nana and Allie came home together, then came Janny and finally Damon. Their staggered arrivals gave me the chance to show off our new car 3 times, and to get their praise and applause 3 times. What a fine, fine day this was turning out to be. That night at dinner, we chowed down on Nana's delicious Frenchified chicken, and I kept the big news to myself until the end of the meal. Pumpkin ice cream and cafe au lait. Janny and Damon wanted to eat and run, but I kept everybody sitting at the table. Janny wanted to get back to her book. She was tripping out on Aragon these days, which was okay, I guess, but I didn't understand why it is that kids have to read the same book half a dozen times. "What now?" She rolled her eyes and asked, as though she already knew the answer. "I have some news," I said to her and to everybody else. The kids looked at one another.